Connie from Let's Go Crafting. Today we're going to make a zippered pouch. This pouch is lined, so you'll have your outside fabric and your inner fabric, and it also has a zipper. Let's begin. You will need to print out a copy of the pattern. The pattern will include all the written instructions along with the picture of what we're making. You will need 2 pieces of fabric, one for the outer, one for the inner. And we'll start with how do we do the pattern. So first you're going to cut this out on the outside of your solid line. And then you can either recycle the rest or save it for later. I always save it because I have a huge use for paper. And now we're going to get started cutting our fabric. Most fabrics have a right side and a wrong side. The right side generally is the darker side. It's the side that you want to show. The other side is the more faded side. So we're going to fold our fabric in half, right sides together, and we're going to put our pattern on top. The reason we want it folded is we want to cut them the same size. We need 2 the same size, one for the front and one for the back. So you pin it on like that. You want to make sure that no part of your pin goes over the outside of your pattern, because then you'll have a difficult time cutting. So you can just put a pin in each corner. Something this size, 4 pins is enough. And then we're going to cut on the outside of the line. If you notice, I'm using 2 different types of scissors. These are paper scissors and these are fabric scissors. You don't want to cut paper with your fabric scissors because then it makes them a little dull. And then you'll just cut around. Okay? We will come back in just a minute to start the zipper. I'm going to cut out this piece. You're going to do the same thing with your inner piece. You're going to fold it over, attach your pattern, and cut that out. You will need 2 pieces of the outer fabric and 2 pieces of the inner fabric. All right, see you in a minute. Alrighty, now we've cut out our fabrics. We have 2 of our outer fabric, 2 of our inner fabric, and we're ready to start attaching the zipper. The zipper can be, you can buy the right size zipper, so it could be 5 inches, or you can use any zipper you have. I have these, they're, I don't know, approximately 18 inches. All zippers cost about the same, so I tend to just buy one size. What you're going to do is you're going to lay the zipper down so that it's facing you. The right side of the zipper is facing you. Your zipper tab, your zipper pull is on your left-hand side. And your fabric is wrong side up, right side down. You're going to set that on your zipper, lining it up with the top of the zipper tape. This is your zipper tape right here. This is your zipper. We will be sewing on the zipper tape. We're going to pin your fabric to your zipper tape. So you just put your pin in. As you sew, your pin should be sticking with the ball side out. I like to pin. Pinning makes it so that my fabric behaves and stays where I want it to stay. As you're pinning, you're going to want, you don't want your fabric to look like that. You want it to actually be lined up so it's matching the side of the zipper tape. Once you have it pinned onto your fabric pinned onto your zipper, you're going to flip it over. Now you want to sew right up here where your pins are. You want to sew in the middle of the zipper tape. If you get too close to your zipper, the zipper won't open. And if you get too close to the edge, the zipper tends to come off. So we're going to aim to sew right in the center. This first seam that I'm going to sew on a sewing machine. You don't need a sewing machine to make this project. So the next seam I sew, I will sew by hand and show you how to do it that way. Let's go to the sewing machine. We're at the sewing machine and we want to set our zipper and our fabric on the sewing machine, and we'll lower our presser foot. We're going to start sewing where the edge of our fabric at the back here, and with our presser foot, the edge of our presser foot on the edge of our zipper tape. And we're aiming down the center of the zipper tape. So we just sew a little bit forward. Always want to back stitch. That's your knot. And it's a good idea to take your pins out before you sew over them. So now let's just sew this seam. It seemed to got stuck, so you can just help it along. Take our pin out. Keep sewing. Take our pin out. And now I'm at the very end of our fabric, and I'm going to just back stitch again to make sure it stays. I'm going to take it off. Trim my threads. I like to trim my threads as I go. It keeps everything nice and neat. And now you have half of your pouch on your zipper already. Let's do hand sewing. Now we're going to put the other outer fabric onto your zipper tape. This time we're going to do it by hand. We're going to take our fabric. We're going to make sure that it's the good side down. We're going to make sure that we line up the edge of our fabric this way and the top of our fabric at the top of the zipper tape. So I'm going to put some pins in, and then we're going to get started with the hand sewing. Okay. I just use any old needle I have laying around. There's many different needles, many different sizes. You probably don't want to use a yarn needle because they're blunted. A sharp needle is good. And we're going to measure out some thread. So I like to measure my thread. I like to hold it in 2 fingers, stretch out my arm, and measure it to my shoulder. Once I do that, I have the end point. And I just cut my thread. Now we're going to thread our needle. And I seem to have left my glasses in the other room. So let's see if I can do it or if I have to pause while I run and get those glasses. All right, I managed to do it. So here we have our thread through the eye of the needle, and we're just going to bring the ends so that the ends are even, like this. Okay? Then you're going to take those ends and you're going to wrap them around your finger so that they overlap slightly. And then you just roll it off the end of your finger and pull down. And there's your knot. Okay, so now let's start sewing. There's 2 different stitches that you can use to sew a seam like this. You can sew a running stitch, which is, you just keep going forward. So you're coming up and you want to do a little stitch. Then you go back down. And then you come up, but you want your space to be little. The bigger the gap, the more space that's not stitched, so you'll have little holes in your pouch. Okay, so this can work. That's the running stitch. You can also do a back stitch if you want. And that one is, you start out exactly the same as the running stitch, so you go forward just a little bit, and then you go back to the other stitch. I'm going to finish this seam and come back to you for the lining. Here we are at the end of our seam with our needle and our thread. The way I like to make a knot is I take a teeny tiny little stitch in my fabric, and then I pull my thread until I just have a little loop. Then I stick my needle in one time from the front, and then a second time from the front. And then I just pull tight. And there's my knot. I don't want to cut it off right here. It will come undone. So I just stick my needle again near my knot, and I just come out somewhere farther away and pull tight. And now that will not come out. And we're going to cut that off. Now it's time for your lining. So this is what the outside of your pouch is going to look like. I know it kind of looks a little strange now, but never fear. So now you just turn your zipper over. Okay? Now the fabric that I chose for the inside does not, I just realized, does not really have a right side and a wrong side. So I'm just not really going to worry about it. If this did have a right side and a wrong side, I would put it right side down. Okay? And I would line up my edges and line up the top. And this is one side of your lining. We're going to sew this on the exact same way that we sewed the other one on. So the way we do that is we flip it over and we follow our line of stitching either on the sewing machine or by hand. It doesn't really matter. I will be right back to show us how to do the other side of the lining. Here I have just sewn on one side of the inside lining, and you can see how that looks. Now to sew the other side on, we turn our zipper around, make sure all the fabrics are out of the way, and again put our fabric right side down, and then line your fabrics up on the sides, pin, just like we've done in the last couple of stitches, last couple of times we've sewn this. And then we sewed this side on as well. Okay? I'll be back. The next step will be to iron, and I'll show you how to do that. Here we are at the ironing board. I have just sewn on the second side of the lining. If we open up the lining, we have a right side of lining and a right side of lining, and our zipper is in the middle. We're going to turn our piece over and open up this part, and here we have, again, the zipper's in the middle, and we have the right side and the right side of the fabric. The true test will be is if I can get this zipper open. So let's try that right now. Ta-la! It opens. All right, so we got this far. I'm going to close this up. And the next step is we need to iron. We need to iron our fabrics away from our zipper. If the fabrics fold up and get into our zipper, we can't open it. So we pull the fabrics away from the zipper and we iron the fabric. When we iron near a zipper, the zippers are usually plastic and the iron is hot. So the iron can melt the zipper. So you want to keep your iron away from your zipper, but you want to iron your fabric flat. Okay? So that's half of my pouch ironed. I'm just going to flip it and iron the other half. And there we go. So to permanently keep this down, we now have to stitch again. And we will stitch right here at the edge of the fabric on both sides on the sewing machine. I'll be right back. Now we're at the sewing machine. I have sewn this seam close to my zipper, which will keep my fabric in line. It will never go across my zipper now. The next thing we'll do is create new zipper stops at the ends of our fabric. Every zipper has something called a zipper stop, and this is it. When you undo your zipper, it comes to the zipper stop and stops. That's what holds your zipper together. If this part comes off, then your zipper opens up and you have to replace it. I'm going to show you two different ways because this pouch can be done by hand or on the machine. All these seams that I've showed you can be done by hand or on the machine. So this first one I'm going to show you on the machine. The next one I'm going to show you by hand. We're going to create the first zipper stop right here at the end of our fabric. So we set our zipper on the sewing machine and we sew right across our zipper. Okay? When we get almost to the end, then we go back across our zipper and come back, and we're going to do that about 4 or 6 times. So that's 4, 5, and we're done. Okay? And now we take it off. I'm going to quickly trim my threads and show you the other side. This side you have to be a little bit more careful. When we make our zipper stop, excuse me, we need to make sure that our zipper pull is inside where the zipper stop is, because that will stop our zipper. So I'm going to move my zipper to the middle of my pouch, and I'm going to pin my zipper so that it's basically touching. You can hold it together with your fingers too. That works just fine. I have my needle that's already prepared. It has the knot on the end like I showed you before. And basically what we do is we create a zipper stop out of thread. So you're going to make your zipper stop right here. When we do it with thread, we don't sew all the way across. We actually just sew across the zipper. So we come up right, if you notice, my needle is coming up right in this little crevice here, right on the side of the zipper. So I pull my thread up, then I come across my zipper, and I head down on the other side of the teeth. These are teeth. And then I do it again. And you're going to do it about 10 times. I will be back as soon as I've done my 10 stitches over this zipper and create this zipper pull. Now we're back. This side has a zipper stop that was done by machine. This side was done by hand. Both of them work. It really, really doesn't matter. So this holds the zipper from coming off, and the same with that side. Now we have to get rid of the excess. You don't want to cut your zipper with your good fabric scissors because it will make little nicks in your blade. So I use my paper scissors. You're going to cut your zippers on the outside of your stitching line, so outside of your zipper stops. So like this. And it's a little difficult once in a while, but there you go. Doesn't have to be straight, doesn't matter. It's going to be on the inside, hidden. You will have, no one will ever see it. So I'm going to cut this one. There we go. These parts are unusable. So these parts, that's going to be trash. And now we just sew this together. So we take the outer fabric like this and the inner fabric, and it's going to look like that. Okay, we're going to sew. I guess the first thing I should tell you is you need to leave your zipper open. The zipper needs to be open. I seem to be stuck. Let's see what's going on. Oh, no, I'm not. There we go. Okay. So for this side, the outside, I'm going to pin this so that I can sew it. And you don't need a whole lot of pins because this is kind of a tiny little cute project. And I'm going to fold my zipper so that the zipper itself is facing that way and the tab is right here. Okay, and I'm going to put my little pin there. I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing. On this side, we're going to sew all three sides of the outside, the outer fabric. So you're going to sew here, and sew here, either on the machine or by hand. I like to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can use whatever it is that you like. I'll be back in just a moment. So now we've sewn our outer fabric together. Now we have to sew our lining. The tricky part of the lining is we need to leave a hole in this end so that we can turn everything right side out. For me, I must put a little visual cue, a reminder to me of where not to sew. Otherwise, I wind up sewing the whole thing and having to rip. So my hole is going to be right here. And that's probably, I don't know, like 2 inches, maybe a little more, 2.5. It's just, you just need a hole large enough that you can turn your project right side out. And again, I'm just going to push my zipper to the other side. I'm going to pin. And then I'm going to pin over here. And the way we're going to sew this, we're going to start over here. We're going to sew here and over to these 2 pins. We're going to backstitch. There's no sewing here. Then we're going to start back up here and backstitch and then come here and finish it up. I'll be right back. We are almost done. Here we have our lining with our turning opening. So let's turn it. So I'm going to open that part. I'm going to stick my finger through. Remember, we left our zipper open so we can reach all the way through to the other side and grab it. And then we turn it. We just pull it like that. And now we are right side out. but it kind of looks like a little bit of a jumble here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick my finger in, and I'm going to push out the corners so they look nice and sharp. And you can use a chopstick or, you know, whatever you want to get the corners out. I use mostly my fingers and sometimes a chopstick. And there's my other corner coming out. And the way this works is, so now you're going to have a nice, neat little bag. However, at this point in time, we still have a hole in it. So, after we push our corners out, there we go. We're going to fold the edges in. So these are raw edges, and raw edges tend to fray like that. So we don't want those to show. We don't want the fray to happen. So we just fold the edges into the inside of the bag, and we pin it to make it behave. And then you can sew it up any way you want. You just sew right across here by hand or by machine. Let's come on over to the machine. I guess I'm using white thread, so we're going to be able to see it. But it's going to be on the inside of the bag, so I'm actually really not going to worry about it too much. And I am sewing, as you can see, I'm sewing right close to the edge. And that's so that I sew through those parts that I turned in. I sew through those, and I keep everything nice and tidy. Take out my pin. Put it in my pin cushion so it doesn't roll away from me. And if you notice, I always put a back stitch at the beginning of every seam and at the end of every seam. So after we trim our threads, we are done. And here you have a nice little lined zippered pouch. You can use it for coins, you can use it for lip gloss, you can use it for just about anything you want. If you want, you can give it a little iron, it'll be flatter. You can make these in any size. So this is 3x5. The pattern that is attached to this video is for the 3x5, but you can make them any size you want. They can be huge, they can be medium, they can even be itty bitty teeny tiny, and it's all the same. I will be back with another project tomorrow.